All right. So we are live, it looks like. Um, so thank you, Jason, for being here. I'm really excited to have you. My heart was like beating, and it wasn't because I was nervous. I think it was just because I was excited. Um, before we get into introductions, just as usual, it's a reminder, you guys, if you have any questions during our chat, you can plug them in the comments. I'll be peeking at them. Actually, I can see them as you type them in. And we are going to get to a Q&A after Jason talks a little bit or a lot about some really cool things. And at the end, we'll also like share some links, as to how to contact him. So Jason, I was trying to figure out today how long I've known you now, and I think it's been probably almost 4 years. And Jason owns and operates Top Tier Columbia in Columbia, Maryland. It's one of the many things that he does. And he is a fantastic coach, mentor, truth teller. Every time I am around you, whether you're in a coaching capacity or we're in our community calls that are awesome that we have every week, I just always walk away feeling that I had learned something or that I can take something away with me that's going to help me just be a better person and grow. And I love that. So I was just super excited when you agreed to come on. I know you're a busy guy. So thank you for coming. I know that everybody will be able to also take some things home with them tonight that you're going to share for sure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I love doing this. So it's a pleasure.
Yeah. So I guess just for starters, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you're up to, maybe, I don't know, like
Yeah.
how you came to be in this moment, where you are, whatever you want to share. The floor is yours.
Okay. Such a simple question, and I these days I feel like I struggle to figure out where I want to answer that. I feel like my life has been a very unique, interesting journey that and nothing that I'm doing, in my opinion, was predicted. My life doesn't look anything like how I thought it would. So the first thing I'd say about myself is I am if you were to ask my parents about what Jason was like as a little boy, they would probably call me defiant. I was that kid. I've always been very intellectual, very smart. I learn things very fast and I retain information really well. I think the gift that my brain has that I don't feel like I think I was just given this part, is that my brain's sort of like a systems engineer. I can learn seemingly disparate topics and areas of industry and things. And, while I'm studying each one, I can become pretty well versed in, the vocabulary and the philosophy and the methods of that niche. But then where I think my brain shines is I'm able to take that and integrate it with other things I've learned, so that over decades, the way I view the world, the way I view health and humanity, is all these interconnected pieces that in my mind are obviously connected and overlap and affect each other, but that in my day-to-day life, I find that most people see all these things as separate, and that and that I often surprise people, in that I think the biggest obstacle I've ever had to overcome in my life and my career is just honestly how I look. So people, my industry in health and fitness, like they see a bald-headed muscular guy, and still 2021, the average person assumes that I'm not very smart. I'm probably really into just how I look and, working out all the time. And that's all I ever talk about and do. And so when I start to teach about things that aren't so obvious in the world of fitness, I think I surprise people regularly, because the image of what I look like does not match like the messages and philosophy and the lessons I teach for many people. So you know, I'm 42, and so when I was younger, that this kind of struggle would get me really frustrated and sometimes angry, bitter, almost like, like what do I got to do to make, prove like that I'm credible and that like I'm worth listening to and learning from. Um, and here we are, years later, and I'm older, and I feel much more patient with people, and I feel like I understand why the culture tends to pigeonhole me into like just sort of one particular role. But as time has gone on, I think I've gotten better at sharing all this, complex stuff in a simplified way. And I also think our culture has opened up a bit its perception of people like me, and our especially I think in light of the last year of the global issues, people are more open to hearing ideas and concepts that maybe weren't something they were interested in, didn't resonate with, let's say a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays I feel like all the obstacles I've overcome through my personal life, my childhood, my professional career, have armed me to be a person who can empathize with people well, and patiently allow their judgment towards me, and still, after that judgment, compassionately show them that, hey, like I think I can help you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think there might be something that I can offer that you maybe just you weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? These days, I'm a business owner of 3 different businesses. That was never supposed to happen. There was never a point in my life where I ever said to myself, I want to own a business. Didn't think I would be able to do it well. And now here I am running, the gym that, you're a part of. And then, I have the thing I learned with the gym is that I have partners. And so with partners, um, you don't always agree. The partners don't always agree, just like any relationship. So another business is Noble Training Institute, which is just my personal brand. And I really made that because I wanted a creative a creative outlet wasn't um, that wasn't influenced by partners' opinions.
Mm-hmm.
So with Noble Training Institute, I can share my thoughts, my ideas, and things I am passionate about, and I don't need to worry about someone else saying, I don't think I really want you to post that, or I don't want, I'm not sure how I
Mm-hmm.
feel about you saying what you're saying. So Noble Training Institute's like my platform for my words, my ideas. And then the Evolving Athletics business is focused only on youth and youth athletes, because I'd like to be a part of actually improving not just how the kids are training for their sport, but actually using that as a foundation to improve their health for a lifetime. So
Mm-hmm.
getting kids to kind of fall in love with exercise and nutrition and training, so that when they become older teenagers, leave the house, maybe go to college or whatever their life's going to be like after high school, um, they're not just going out there and having to start from zero, like learning how to take care of themselves. So Evolving Athletics is part performance training with kids, but we have a secondary goal of, we'd like to impact these kids, and so that their entire family systems um, value the health and fitness stuff we do. And then the gym's, a gym. My favorite thing about Top Tier is it's big enough that we can create a bunch of subcultures in there,
Mm-hmm.
and we can all coexist together and learn from each other, which is again it's another opportunity, for all of us to examine our beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
examine our prejudices, our biases, like again, you know, bald head, muscular guy must only love like lifting heavy weights, but you'll see in the gym other bald head, muscular people who like other things,
Mm-hmm.
and so we all can coexist together. Um, and I'm a big fan of creating scenarios where dialogue happens, belief systems are challenged, debates occur, but respectfully, because I don't think that happens nearly enough in person.
Yeah,
Plenty
I agree.
does on social media and internet, but
Yeah,
we know how that goes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that, well, first of all, I love what you're doing with the youth. And I didn't know a whole lot about that business. And
Mm-hmm.
I really love that you're doing that. And the other piece is I 100% agree. Top Tier is just such an amazing community. And for anybody that's in this area or, within driving distance, I highly recommend checking it out. It's unlike any other community and gym that I've been a member of. There's just so many things going on in there. It's not just about the gym, like you said. I mean, it's just a totally different culture. It's about being strong and, just like you said, there's just diversity there, and there's a lot of empowerment going on, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the many things that I really admire about you and that I've learned and aspire to be more like you is your way of coaching and teaching other people when certain topics come up, or even if you're just coaching or talking to somebody in a class, for example, the way that you approach them, even if they're being resistant or like I feel like you always come like in a challenging way, but like a compassionate and like curious way, right? I mean, I just love how you always pose questions, and every time you pose questions to people, when they ask you a question first, you always follow it up with a question, and then you see their like wheels turning, and a lot of times they kind of answer their own question,
Mm-hmm.
and I just think that that's such a great way to teach, right? And even in our community calls, which every week, guys, there's a group of us, anybody's welcome in this community, and we're inviting others too. But there's always a topic every week that, is often not fitness related. It's just something that sometimes is controversial, sometimes not. But even in those moments when people are giving very differing opinions on what could be pretty intense topics, you always have a way of just bringing everyone together and finding common ground and asking thought-provoking questions. And I think that's great. That's awesome. That's how it should be, right? We should all be talking more face to face about these issues and topics that are on all of our minds, and that's how you learn and grow, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
And teaching people, giving them opportunities to sort of like almost teach them. I mean, maybe it teaches the wrong word, but like guide them
Right, exactly.
through the process of exploring their own thoughts, their own ideas, and not just hearing someone else's ideas and then just adopting it, right? It's like if anything I want to do in life, this is not at all just fitness related. Anything I want to do in life, the stages of learning earlier in the stages, like mimicry. You find someone who's doing something you really want to do well, and you try and copy them. But eventually, mimicry has to become, like autonomy in a sense. Like all of our ideas, the ideas we get from other people, they have to be rearranged gradually in our own heads into our own ideas and our own applications. And I think dialogue and asking, poignant questions is a big part of helping people, integrate new ideas into their own ideas. And then once it becomes their own idea, now there's organic, buy-in to change something. But before that moment, an idea is just someone else's idea, and there's no good reason for me to take that idea and change my life in any way until I've made it my own, and then I can now do something with that and see if like the changes I wanted are positive or negative. And if they're not so great, come up with a new idea.
Yeah, I love that. And I was just thinking because I always get a number of questions about mindset and motivation when it comes to, just living a healthier lifestyle, whether it's nutrition related or fitness related or anything, right? And we don't have to get into that yet because it's part of the questions, or we could. I know that you had some things you wanted to share too. Maybe it'll all kind of melt together, but
Yeah, the
okay.
mindset stuff's all part of kind of what I was going to talk about anyhow. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's do it.
Okay. So, all right. So I had originally prepared slides, so I was going to have like visual stuff for people too, but we'll do without the visuals. So first thing I wanted to give people is like just a background of who I am, like how I got where I am, and it's just a few highlights because I do think it makes my journey unique. So what's super common in my field in fitness and performance is somebody goes to school, they graduate with a degree in something exercise science related, and then they basically just sort of get their first job in exercise science, fitness, personal training, something like that, and then it's just boom, move through that world. Maybe they get into some sort of like business venture of their own, but it's usually just an extension of sort of the group or one-on-one fitness training, right? So I graduated from University of Maryland, with a bachelor's of kinesiology. So that is my only degree, all right? And so this again brings up an interesting concept, that typically most people will assume that a person who has a bachelor's degree and a person who has a PhD, like if we're weighing them side by side, whatever the person with the PhD says must be more credible than the person who, has a high school diploma or just a bachelor's degree, something like that. What I like to serve in my life is examples of these things not being true. And so while I only have a bachelor's degree, again, going off of like how my brain, was formed, I decided not to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars of extra debt to go, get these credentials behind my name just to play the game that society wants me to play. And instead, what I did was I said, all right, I now have this degree. It's a starting point. I want to find people who are doing things that I want to do well, and I'm going to offer to help them, in many cases for free, and learn what they're doing so that I can integrate it into my own life and my own system. So yes, I graduated college and I started the personal training gig, and I started just, I did what everyone does, like out of college with my degree. But then after a while, I learned that I had content, I had information I learned in school that I'm trying to apply to people's lives. But the teaching part, like taking information in my head and giving it to somebody else in a way that they can resonate with and make it digestible, that's teaching, right? And I don't care whether, I'm teaching somebody a fitness thing, teaching somebody how to play a piano, teaching somebody how to learn a new language. Don't care what the topic is and the content. Teaching is teaching is teaching. All right. Human learning is still the same no matter what I'm learning. So what do? I go become an educator. I went and taught middle school and high school, 2 years one, 2 years another, in public school systems to learn how to teach information to groups of people that were highly diverse. And my thinking was, well, if I can teach kids, adults are just older kids. And I can tell you for sure it's true after having done this for a long time. Teaching children is harder than teaching adults. So if I can learn that well, then it'll be a breeze when I have to teach adults something. And it absolutely was an integral part of my development, is just focusing on learning how to teach. And then I decided, well, I got this fitness part, and I have, in the world of fitness, typically you got people who just want to look a certain way or maybe feel well. There's not a lot of performance related stuff in fitness. So then I went and worked for a very large company called Velocity Sports Performance, and it was in Rockville, Maryland. And there for 2 years, I ran what was the equivalent of a Division I collegiate strength and conditioning program for many, many Maryland teams. The Terps, for example, and the cheerleading, the Ravens cheerleaders, and all sorts of teams. And it was me, 3 other coaches, and a chiropractor. And the chiropractor is the one who owned the company. So there I got the experience of how do collegiate level performers train? What do they expect from people like me? What are the businesses that service them have to be modeled after? So now I've got this, I've got the general fitness experience, I got the public education experience, and I've got the high level elite performance experience. And then the next step was sports medicine. So ironically, that doctor ended up closing that business after 2 years, and I stayed with him and continued working in sports medicine. So then I got the experience of seeing how fitness and medicine come together, rehabilitation as well come together. So I have this big spectrum of experiences. It's like I'm not only learning how to help people who are broken become not broken and just get back to normal function, but then I got the people who are functioning just fine. They want to look a certain way, feel good. That's my fitness clients. And then you got this next group that's, okay, I'm bored of just fitness. I want to actually do a sport and perform really well. And so now I'm in the performance world. And then eventually the performers tend to get injured, and they recycle back to the sports medicine world. So I got all this experience over, it was roughly, that was probably like a 10-year period of my life. And somewhere around year 12 is when I became a business owner. So that was like my next phase of my evolution, how do I create all this holistic integrated stuff in a way that's sustainable by itself, where I don't have anyone else to blame for my failures except for me. But on the plus side, I also get to be excited about my successes too. So it's a great way to learn it's a great way to learn all sorts of stuff. It's trial by fire for real. You sink or swim, and it is what it is. And it's great ever since. So what I bring all that stuff up about myself to say that I do think that that's one of the reasons why I am pretty unique, is that the average person in my field, they stay in their lane and they don't really go out of it. And so you have conversations with, fitness, professionals, and you'll tend to find that they just kind of stayed in their lane, where they were focusing on body composition and aesthetics and how someone feels. And likewise, you go talk to a chiropractor, physical therapist, and they tend to stay in their lane with, I help people who come broken to me get, back to function, right? But, a lot of times those people know next to nothing about how to get somebody performing well, or how do I, somebody who's, 30 pounds of overweight, how do we get them down to a more, positive body composition so that their health markers improve, right? So I got all this stuff now that I integrate, and because I'm just blessed and lucky to have a brain that does well with integrating, it was like fun. It's like puzzle solving for me. So I like to prove, by living my life, that a person can become highly credible, very skilled, all without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of extra debt just to make it seem like you have the credibility. All right, that's the difference. Is like my credibility is earned. It's not just a credential behind my name. It's 20 years of doing stuff and failing and figuring out how to fix the failure. And that is an entirely different level of credibility than, in my opinion, the formal schooling. That being said, I have something close to 15 certifications on top of the degree. I still, to this day, am a competitive strength athlete. So, I'm 42, got all this professional experience, but I still show people that a person can choose to do all this stuff with their life, their professional life, and still make time, if they want to compete in things that make them feel fulfilled. And not only do I like to show that it can be done as a busy business owner, multiple business owner, but that you can do it late in life and remain relatively injury free and pretty healthy. And so, there's a general truth to my world, which is that if a person is trying to maintain or achieve optimal health, that same person must sacrifice some of that health if they want to perform well, because high performers generally can't be highly healthy, optimally healthy people. There's nothing about prolonged performance that is the same as health. But it doesn't mean that we have to give up large amounts of our health behaviors to perform well. And so I really think one of the things that I'll show in my life over the next 10, 20 years still, I think as I age, I'm going to be doing more and more things in the world of strength sports that surprise people, and doing it in a way where I'm not broken, like a name that pops in my head is like Ronnie Coleman. That's a well-known household name of somebody who was in the bodybuilding era, powerlifting era of the 80s and 90s. Who was amazingly successful at what he did in the world of bodybuilding and powerlifting. But the man's something like maybe 60-ish now. Maybe he's not even 60, but if people aren't familiar with him, like the listeners, go look him up. The man's broken, like in wheelchairs. He's had like 7 different surgeries. So he says his life was worth what he's having now. And maybe he sincerely feels that way, right? And more power to him if he does. But I look at his life, and I think it's cool what he did early in his career. But I wouldn't, if I was him, and if somebody said to me, if you go do this stuff now, the way you're doing it now, when you get to like in your 50s, you're looking at multiple surgeries, you're not going to be able to walk, blah, 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 blah. Like, nope, not interested.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, sorry to interrupt, but one of the things that I have noticed, and you've even mentioned this, I think, before, is that you really do enjoy working with older adults. And I've seen you in the gym, working with older couples, and, we're talking 60s, 70s, even older. And you've shared stories where, they haven't been active or they have trouble getting up, or maybe they have been wheelchair bound, and, just in working with them. And I'm sure a lot of that is coaching and empowering as well, because, I'm sure you've heard, or I know that, once you get to a certain age, you hear it a lot. Oh, it's too late, right? Or, oh, if I start exercising now, I'm going to hurt myself. There's a lot of misconceptions with getting started or even getting back into it after you've been out for a while, because they don't want to get hurt, but really it's so that they can prevent injury, right? And become stronger. And I think I hear that a lot too. So
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, the risk reward continuum is real, and it's dynamic, and it's always changing. So, if I were to lay in bed and literally just never get out of bed, eventually I'm going to have real health problems and injuries too, ironically. But all I was just in bed, right? So the average person has this, the average person who's older or starting their journey in fitness, my experience has been that they tend to have this belief that heavy things are dangerous, high effort things are dangerous, especially if I'm older. You know, I should have done that stuff when I was young. Now I missed my opportunity. So now I just got to like try and, you know, I just got to walk. Like my mom talks that way. It's like my mom has this, you know, she's in her 60s and she has this belief that all women should do is walk and lift 5-pound weights. I'm like, well, Mom, like, I'm your son. Like, look at what I do.
Do you know
like,
me?
You know, yeah. And so, you know, like this married couple who are from Chile, so they speak Spanish, English, and French, and they came to me probably 4 years ago. They were parents of a gym member at the time, and that member asked her parents, like, look, you haven't done anything. Like, these people literally have never been in a gym ever until they met me. And they were in their 70s by the time they met me. And she kept wearing them down, like, you gotta go, just go talk to Jason. Like, please go see him. So the very first meeting was all about overcoming how I look. So our first meeting was sitting down together and me convincing them that the bald-headed muscular guy isn't going to do bald-head muscular guy stuff with them.
Right.
And so first conversation ended in a way they're willing to come back. Like, okay, next meeting, the second meeting is let's do some exercise stuff. So we get together, and I'm sure they were scared and they thought maybe I was going to have them do some crazy stuff. And we did very, very basic things. But the strategy I used with them was to give them things that I thought they could do well, and then a few things that I thought they wouldn't do well. But I suspected that their personalities would be challenged, like almost sort of annoyed that they couldn't do it well. And that would motivate them to try to improve so that the next time we did it, they could show me they did it a little bit better. And that's what ended up working. Like, is I just played into their own need to feel competent. And within a year, so these people, when I met them, they could not get out of a chair on their own without kind of like rocking. Yeah. Okay. Ready, get up. Right. And so within a year, I had them, let's see, they could squat with like kettlebells, you know, holding, I think it was only maybe 25, 35 pounds, but they were doing, you know, sets of 10 squats with, you know, the weights in front of them. They could hang with from a bar for a minute straight with their body weight. Not pulling up or anything, but just hang full body weight. They were walking, doing farmers carries around our track with 35 to 45 pounds in each hand. The husband even like got to a point where he could kind of run with the weights, and that became like his thing, you know, as he wanted to see if he could like run around the track with the weights. And so it just sort of built from there. And, you know, and I'm proud of them. I'm proud of myself too. Like, we did lay like a really powerful foundation, because when the pandemic occurred, you know, this couple was not willing to come out in public with me anymore. We've only seen each other once in public, and it was in an open air outdoor setting since then. But I check in with them on a regular basis. They've kind of become, they're definitely good friends of mine. I mean, I feel like a family member at this point. And they tell me, they're like, Jason, like 3 times a week, we're in our basement doing our exercises still.
Yay,
and
good.
I haven't done anything with them in a year and a half. So they've maintained, after, the 3 years of us doing stuff together, we would meet once a week for 3 years straight, and they had their homework to do. So they would work out 3 times, once with me a week, twice with themselves at home, and they're still doing it. Right? And these
That's
are
awesome.
people whose belief systems started with, I don't think I need that stuff. It's not important for my life, and I can't do it anyhow, because if I did, I'm going to get hurt.
Right.
And now, 4 years later, there's no chance. They're not even willing to stop. They feel amazing. They can do so many things that they couldn't do before. Yeah. And so it's a great case study of older people.
What do you think? I mean, just in speaking of motivation and mindset, I often hear, oh, okay, you went out for a second. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
They go through a program, for example, or a protocol, right? And they're feeling great, they're doing great, but then eventually they slide, get off track or whatever you want to call it. And sometimes it happens, it's recurring, right? Like, I mean, I hear a lot that people are like, I just don't understand why I can't stick to anything. Like I really want to be healthier, have these health issues, or I really want to start moving my body, but I just can't stick with it. I don't know what's going on. Like, what would you say to someone, or what have you said to, people in your experience or clients that have struggled with that?
Yeah. So, a couple of things. One is, people have this acceptance in their daily life that there are things I do every day that I don't really want to do. I don't enjoy doing it, but the act of doing it gives them something that they want. Easiest example would be, I'm tired, I don't feel like getting out of bed, but I go to work anyhow. So for whatever reason, people can accept that that's a part of life. However, when it comes to health and fitness, they have this unrealistic expectation that the experience should be fun and easy every single time. But if we stop talking about health and fitness and we just look at what you're currently doing in your daily life as it stands, like, I don't know, probably do some house chores every week, right? I got to go to a store and pick something up, but I don't really feel like it. Oh, my kid has to go to a soccer game, but I'd rather be, chilling at home, with my husband watching television. I mean, whatever, right? Like, these are super easy, concrete examples that everyone can relate with, where we do the thing we don't want to do and we feel like it's worth it. And then we get into the world of fitness, and all of a sudden that mindset isn't acceptable anymore. So that's one of the first things I tend to tell people, is that grit is a thing that you need to develop whether you want to be fit or not. So why don't you just apply that same grit to every aspect of your life? Another thing I'll tend to talk to people about is, so I like use maybe like myself as an example. Like, people look at me. Some people want to look like me. And what they'll typically do is say, hey, if I go do the workouts you do, will that get me to look like you? The answer is, maybe. I mean, it probably will if you stick to it long enough. And then they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to go do the stuff you do. And then time goes on and it's not fun to them. They don't really like it. Or maybe their body doesn't feel great when they're doing it. Why would that person ever stick with it for very long? Right? Like, everyone's got their own struggles in their current life, and everyone's current life changes as months and years go by. So what seems hard now may not seem hard later. What seems fun now might not seem fun later. And so people need to find activities that they enjoy most of the time, not all the time, something that they feel like they can stay consistent with for a few months, because at the end of the day, it is just an experiment. We can't really know what the recipe for someone's success is today, predicting what's happening 3 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
All we can agree on is, well, here's some ideas that might help you get where you want to go. These ideas are interesting to you, like you're curious about them, sound reasonably fun. I understand I have to use my grit to sometimes force myself to do it, and we'll see where we go. We will see the outcome of these choices a few months from now. And if a few months from now we don't like what happened, we just shift, right? And so I think people need to accept that grit is just part of life, including how we take care of our physical body and our mind. I think people need to stop picking activities that they see other people doing, with the belief that copying them will make them be those people, and instead just go inside themselves, come up with a couple activities they think they might enjoy that will help them be a little bit healthier, more fit, and you just do them, and you see what your emotional experience will be with that thing. Because unless somebody sticks with something reasonably consistently, nothing's going to change. And then the last part, so the grit's super important, the consistency is super important, but being patient with ourselves, that it is not a failure if somebody starts something and then messes up. It is not a reason to feel guilty. It is not a reason to feel shame. It is a reason to go become introspective, right? Like if I start something and I stop, I would argue you owe yourself the time and energy to ask yourself the question, why? What is it that led to me stopping? And when I figure out what led to me stopping, I probably can come up with some ideas with maybe my coach's help that will help me redirect, so that now, okay, I'm back engaged. Maybe it's a little different, but I'm engaged again. I'm going through the movement and motions and whatever behaviors, and then I just get back up and I do it again. It's like that what's that Rocky quote? I'm gonna mess it up, but the basic quote of it, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many, it's getting back up.
Right. Yeah.
So who cares if somebody stops something, so long as they're willing to look at themselves and try and to correct, as long as they're willing to use that as an opportunity to figure out where things went wrong, why they went wrong, and then just adjust. I feel sad oftentimes for people who are stuck in this all or nothing mindset, the black and white, like if I either stick to this one thing and commit fully, or I don't do it at all, or I'm a failure. That's no way to grow through life. That's no way to evolve. There's no way to figure yourself out. Because I would argue that the average person who's operating that way most of the time, I would argue they don't even really know themselves. That they're probably living a life that's reflected of other people's expectations and societal pressures, and not really about their life and their purpose and their journey. When we can orient our mind and our behaviors towards what we are here to do, what our purpose is, what our value to the world is, it's hard to see anything as a failure at that point, because it's just one big puzzle and one big journey until I die.
Right. Yeah, for sure. There was another quote, and I would probably mess up this one, but it's something like, I don't lose, I just learn, or something, like if you, or I don't fail, I just learn and then go to the next thing. Right. Like there's always a learning opportunity in any situation.
Absolutely.
And it does change it changes everything when you try to shift your mindset to that, and, just approach everything as a learning experience, and instead of getting stuck. And I'm sure it's a hard shift to make, but once you're there, it makes things a lot easier. You feel better. And I would guess that you would be more inclined to be more motivated to keep going or stick to something, right?
Yeah. And to stick to something, like, defining goals is a really important thing. And like, if my goal is normally people want goals to be very objective, very specific, and that's a very left brain way to approach problems. Not saying it's wrong, but there are other, like, having vague goals can actually help people, in my opinion, orient their self-talk into more positive, more positive talk. So here's like an objective goal, right? Like an objective goal would be, I want to deadlift 600 pounds by the end of this year one time. Okay, well, that's very, very well defined. But and so I could go down this road of a certain kind of training and eating and lifestyle that may or may not end up having me, deadlift 600 pounds at the end of the year. And if I fail, if I don't deadlift 600 pounds, I could label myself as a failure, and I screwed up, and what were you thinking, Jason? Like, you weren't ever going to be able to do it anyhow. Or I could also have vague goals, like, I want to figure out what makes me feel the healthiest and happiest in my life. And something so vague as that means that as long as I'm mindful of that kind of goal, it means that anytime I make a mistake, that mistake is simply viewed as a moment, an opportunity to self-correct towards, this goal of evolving and figuring out what my health is supposed to be like and what my joy in life is supposed to be like. And so each time I make a mistake in my life around my health and fitness, it almost is exciting to me, like, because of my curiosity. I'm like, ooh, that didn't work out the way I thought it was. Let me see if I can try something different, and maybe I can still get what I want. Maybe I haven't tried a certain strategy to make myself feel better, and now I can try it, right? Maybe I was afraid to make a decision for a long time. That is a real thing in my life, is I'm a guy who tends to take a long time to decide things. And so fear of making a decision sometimes impedes my movement forwards. But as long as I'm reshaping that conversation in my head as in the context of me evolving over the course of my life and seeking as close to optimal health as I can at any point in my life, it's all part of the game. It's all part of the puzzle. There's nothing, I didn't really fail at anything. And so I think that helps me. I think having these vague goals are also good to ground me, so that I don't get caught up in the left brain data related, details around objective goal making.
Yeah.
because that objective, goal making is like, it removes the emotional, spiritual, part of our lives. And
Hmm.
it's just science, data, action, reaction.
Right. And I love
Yeah.
that. And I talk about that with my research participants and clients too. It's like having an expectation or an objective goal or an intention, right? And just being
Mm-hmm.
more vague, like you had said. And I feel like it also, instead of just focusing on that one goal that you may or may not hit, um,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of being open to whatever you experience, right? So I don't know. I think that if you're just narrow visioned on this one goal, you may be experiencing other health benefits or outcomes along the way and not even really realize it. Whereas if you're kind of going into it more open and seeing what the experience, whether it's like starting to eat a different way or starting to exercise or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
it seems that, you might recognize those other positive outcomes. Like you're more likely to
Yep.
recognize those and celebrate those, right? Like if you're just kind of going into it, I'm going to start doing this and let's just see what happens versus I want to lose 10 pounds by this date, or I want to, lift
Right.
this weight by,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of getting into that whole like shame game and that cycle, right?
Yep. Definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
so we could talk for hours and hours, right? Is there
Yeah.
anything else? I mean, I wanted to get to some of the questions, but is there anything else that you wanted to talk a little bit about? Like as far as,
Yeah, I'll keep
okay.
it brief. So, my purpose today was, I wanted to give your audience an overview of who I am so that they can use me for a resource if they so chose,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then, some of the questions that we got were like, it felt like it was more beginner level people looking
Mm-hmm.
for like, hey, how do I start my fitness journey? Um, how do I begin the process of creating optimal health and fitness? And so, I am a big fan of the Czech Institute's model, and their model talks about the last four doctors that we will ever need,
Mm-hmm.
and those doctors are inside of us, and those doctors are Dr. Happy, Dr. Movement, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet. And Dr. Happy is considered the chief physician of the team. So Dr. Happy is just referring to us taking the time to orient our life and our thoughts to what our values, our purpose, our mission is. And many people actually don't know what that answer is. So as long as we set the intention of trying to go through life figuring that out, like what brings us joy, what makes us feel whole, what makes us feel motivated to get up in the morning and do more of the grit stuff that we don't really want to do sometimes, but we do it anyway because it makes us happy. It makes us joyful to generally do it, even when we're tired, even when we're not feeling motivated at that moment. So Dr. Happy, and taking the time to meet Dr. Happy's expectations as the chief physician, is the priority and the foundation upon which we build all health and fitness behaviors. And then you have Dr. Movement, which we've already talked a good bit about. I like to throw in a quick little, I guess, like aha, like thought experiment where the fitness industry in general exists almost entirely because technology and culture have removed manual labor from our daily
Mm-hmm.
lives. That if we weren't in such a comfortable, technologically supported, suburban, culture, civilization, our need to go to a gym and do exercise related stuff would be far less, than it currently is. Ironically, our culture has figured out that if we fail to artificially put back into our lives, the manual labor, which is what is occurring at all gyms everywhere all the time. Our health declines, we get diseases, we die early. And so unless the person listening to this is like a construction worker that puts in like some significant time and movement on a daily basis, more and more responsibility falls on our shoulders to move our bodies every day somehow, which doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be hard all the time. Mm-hmm. So you need something, it's like four S's: something you enjoy, something that matches your goals, something you'll consistently do, and something supported by a tribe.
I love that. Yeah, for sure.
Dr. Diet, right? He supports everything that Dr. Happy and Dr. Movement are preaching. I tell people, keep it simple, meaning just like in the world of exercise, the world of nutrition can be very complicated. And there are many, many left brain people who think, I'm just going to learn as much stuff as I can, and I'm going to put together all these pieces for my diet and my exercise. And once I get this perfect plan together, then I'll have everything I wanted. And they put all these pieces together, and then they start, and a week later they quit because it's just too much, too overwhelming.
Exactly.
Okay, well, with nutrition, with diet, let's just start simple. Like, and that I'm making it vague for a reason, right? It could be simple, can be anything. I don't know, like, hey, I only eat one meal a day. Maybe we try and get a second meal in for a little while. You know, hey, I don't eat any vegetables. Maybe eat one a day, you know?
Right.
So I think it's important people include fasting in some of what they're doing. You know, I'm not gonna get into the why, but it's a tool that I've found in my personal and professional life to be incredibly powerful. Although, like every other tool, I do find people over rely on it sometimes. Like someone decides every day I'm going to fast for 12 hours for the rest of my life. It's like maybe that's not necessary either.
Right.
Eat living food, eat lots of colors, drink lots of filtered and remineralized water. As all part of Dr. Diet. Dr. Quiet, one of the things I want to point out with him is working in versus working out. There's a whole lot of people in our culture love to work out, and most of those people don't know anything about working in. Working in is the complement. It's the yin, yang is hard, it's masculine, that's working out. The yin, the feminine, the soft is working in. Well, what's working in? It means doing any activity that rejuvenates the system, that makes us feel more alive, more, it builds energy, it doesn't deplete energy. That could be napping, that could be, my case, playing the piano, it could be drawing, it could be something movement related like Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga. And then obviously part of Dr. Quiet is sleeping too, right? Is like making, like, everyone needs to grasp that out of all the possible behaviors that we can pick, the most anabolic behavior is sleep. So if I want to build muscle, if I want to get strong, if I want to lose body fat, I can have the most perfect exercise program, a great diet going. And if I'm crap with my sleeping habits, it's likely going to fall apart. I could take as many anabolic steroids as I want. My sleep is crap, it's going to fall apart. That the most powerful anabolic behavior we have is sleep. We learned that in the 40s and 50s, actually, with the military and the special forces, groups. So it's well documented, well researched. So we had Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet. Oh, I think I recovered everybody. Yeah. So I got Dr. Happy, Movement, Quiet, and Diet. Yep. So I got everybody. So I just wanted to summarize that because I think that's an easy. Czech Academy, Czech Institute did a really good job, in my opinion, of making it. It's like chunking it down in simple things for people to understand. And so if someone's asking, well, how do I how do I begin the process of getting, healthy? Well, you need to do something related to your happiness. You need to get clear on what those, dreams and goals and objectives are. You need to have some strategy for increasing movement in your life. Ideally, some of those movements should be, energy depleting, like working out, and some of them should be energy rejuvenating, like working in. I need to have alone time, quiet time with myself, right? I can't always be productive. I can't always be around other people. I need to spend time getting to know me, and healing and recuperating. And then I also need to make sure that I'm putting in my body food and water that is supporting my life's dreams, goals, and objectives. All right.
So eating living food, I've heard you give this you speak about this before. So living food versus dead food. We're talking real whole nutrient dense foods, right? With lots of colors versus because I've heard you even use the term dead food, but like, those are ultra processed foods is what you're referring to. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then with go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I mean, it's I find it pretty simple. It's like if I stick something in front of this camera and we watched it for, a day, if it doesn't seem like it's rotting slowly over the day, it's not alive. And living food is full of enzymes. And those enzymes are a major part of how we feel energetic every single day. So if we're not putting in our bodies living food that's packed full of micronutrients and enzymes, what happens is our own cellular system depletes our stores of enzymes. And so over time, our mitochondria can't actually produce the energy required to feel alive. And so you put someone on processed dead food long enough, the accumulation of depleting their enzyme pathways becomes so accumulated that the damage feels overwhelmingly tiring, lethargic, painful, as I described that person, can you imagine being that person in their head? And I'm trying to talk to them about exercising, and they're like, Jason, every moment of every day, I'm tired as hell, right? Like, that's no kind of way to be able to live your life's dreams, figure out what makes you happy, eat well, exercise, right? So we have to eat living food often enough, long enough that we're not setting ourselves up to just live a life that feels like dead. If I don't have the energy to do things every day, I'm not going to be able to create the life I'm looking for. I'm just going to dig myself deeper into a hole.
Right, exactly. And speaking of mitochondria and sleep, I've learned a lot. I love your content, and I've learned a lot from you and then Gina Rieg, just about the power and benefits of light. And I started this, I don't know, like months and months ago, just as a self-experiment, to improve my sleep, and getting out in the first, but within a 30-minute window of when I wake up, even just walking outside, without any shades or anything, and just being out there for, even 10 minutes. It really is amazing how much of a difference that made in my life. Just for example, that day, if I start that day that way, I can tell like my sleep is better that night, but even my energy levels throughout the day, my mood is better. Can you talk a little bit about that, why that is? And I know that you love talking about light. We can talk about all this, but even
so right here, I have an infrared lamp on me while we're even talking. So it's a near infrared light. So that matters because there's something called far infrared as well. And light is a nutrient. So it doesn't get talked about like that, but I feel like this is a fair thing to say. I think this will be said more and more and more as our culture moves forward. So we accept that water is a nutrient. We accept that foods have nutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals in those things, and that we accept that the water and the stuff in the food eventually gets broken down in a way that our individual cells use them to produce energy and other bodily functions. And we accept that. What our culture is still struggling to accept is that the sun and light in general is a nutrient as well, that our mitochondria, in fact, are essentially eating, it's a weird way to think of it, but they're consuming the electrons of various wavelengths from the sun's energy. And now, in fairness, I'm not going to break down all of it, but the sun is a wide range of light spectrums. There's UV light, for example. There's infrared light. There's all these different spectrums of light, and the ones that are most life affirming are infrared and ultraviolet. And the mitochondria in our cells, which are basically like the battery of our cells. If you look at a mitochondria underneath of a microscope, and then you go over to a plant and look at the chloroplasts in the microscope, they look identical except in color. Now, we accept that the chloroplast absorbs the electrons from the sun and by utilizing that light energy and water and sugar create photosynthesis, a chemical reaction for their energy. Yet for some reason, we have difficulty in mainstream accepting that the same exact designed organelle that's the chloroplast and the mitochondria. We have difficulty accepting that the mitochondria in multicellular organisms are doing the same function, even though it's funny if you open up a physiology book and you start learning about mitochondrial function, they'll talk all about the electron transport chain and oxidative phosphorylation as well. And the electron transport chain says it right there, that I am transporting electrons from one place to another to create energy. And where do we get the electrons from? Or one of the places we get the electrons from is sunlight. We get electrons from all sorts of other things too, like hydrogen, for example, which is found in our water and our food. But the light should be viewed, in my opinion, as a necessary nutrient for survival, no different than how we view water and food. And I do believe that that kind of presentation will actually become more and more mainstream over the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely hearing more and more people talk about it, particularly in the wellness space, but even here and there, you'll even hear a little bit in like a mainstream article or something about the benefits of getting more sun. And so it's nice to see that shift. And I think, especially now that a lot of us are in front of the screens all day, and we're not getting outside as much, right? And that can really be detrimental too, to sleep and overall health and all of that, because we're not getting enough of that natural light.
That's why I use the infrared light. That's why I started using them, is because it's this simple, right? Like today I only got outside for about, it was like a half hour middle day to eat, sitting in the sunshine. And, there are days where there is no sunshine, right? Or my schedule just makes so I'm not able to get out there the way I would like. And so I've learned that if I do my computer work, right, as I normally would, but I stick the infrared light on me, or I'm watching television, at night, and my behavior hasn't changed. I just added one thing into the behavior, and the effects have been quite profound. Like there is a dramatic improvement in mood and energy. And because I'm so into problem solving and science, one of the things I use our gym for is like experiments. So you're aware right now the current experiment with around 10 of us is the cold therapy, immersion in tubs. Well, the one before it was the light therapy. So I had about 10 people buy infrared lights with me. And then we all agreed to just start shining them on us while we were doing stuff like in our day life. And then we would like compare notes, you know, because we would learn. I wish more people did this. It's like I went out and I learned the information about infrared light, right? But who, like, okay, now what am I going to do with that information? And how do I even know if it applies to me?
Right.
Like maybe what some people are saying won't happen for me. So what do? We decide, okay, this seems reasonable to try. All right, let's all get together, do this every single day, and compare notes for a month. And unanimously, all of us, no, not a single person in this experiment has had anything but profound changes.
Oh, wow.
It's night and day differences. Everyone sleeps so much better, their mood's so much better, and it's so easy. All they had to do was spend, $20 on a bulb, $20 on a clamp lamp, and then just live their life like they normally were.
So how much time did you guys, or how did you use the light? Like just in the evenings or in the mornings or after?
So we've had our group did it all, and we have not found that any of it changes the outcome. So it doesn't seem like the part of the day matters. At least in terms of sleep quality. I'd say that's probably the main report we get, is that all of us sleep more soundly and fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer, or deeper sleep longer, I should say. And so some people are working on their computer, in their day job, and just shining a light on them for large parts of that during, the 9 to 5 era. I tend to shine it on me when I'm at home. I'm usually only home in the evening time, so it'd be like 9 to 11 p.m. 2 hours of just general infrared exposure. So it doesn't seem to matter much when people are using it. It's just that they are using it, and that it's good enough.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love learning about all this stuff.
Same.
Cool. Well, I was hoping that you would talk about those four, what is it? The four happy...
the last 4 doctors you will ever meet.
Got it.
Happy, movement, diet, and quiet.
And the Czech Institute, I like their podcast too. Their podcast is pretty good.
Paul Czech's amazing, man.
Yeah.
He's a major mentor of mine.
That's awesome. Yeah, cool. Well, you did answer actually a lot of the questions in what you've shared so far. There were a couple of questions, I think.
Yeah, hit me up.
Yeah.
Give them to me.
So the fitness questions, you've answered quite a few of those, but I think if I had to lump them into one, it would be, how could I get started at home? Like if I just wanted to, improve my strength, improve my health, but I'm not able to or ready to go to a gym. What can I do at home with minimal equipment?
So I'll give some very easy practical answers. So one of the answers I often give people is if we wanted to start like really at the a close to the most basic level, meaning a person can kind of get up, move around, and generally do stuff in life, but they haven't done any fitness stuff for years and years and years, let's say, but they have no significant pain or injury. Where I like to start with those people is I like to get them doing squatting every day, meaning just sitting in a squat, not reps and weight and all that stuff. Just get into a squat and accumulate 10 minutes a day. So one of the things I like about that is it doesn't require somebody to carve out 10 minutes right now to do it all. They can kind of piece it together throughout the day. I often ask them to do the same thing with hanging. So and they're like, well, what do I hang on? I'm like, I don't care. Find something. I don't know. Buy a pull-up bar and start in the house if that's what you want, or go outside on the tree branches or the jungle gym in your local neighborhood, and just start developing the ability to hang. Hanging is great for your grip and your shoulders and your spine, particularly shoulders and spine. And squatting, active squatting, just sitting in the bottom of a squat, is great for the hips, knees, ankle, and lower back. And so now we're laying the foundation for healthy joint function, and that opens up the opportunity to train muscles if the person would like to. Another thing I like to incorporate is something related to diaphragmatic breathing. So core function, I mean, we hear all about it all the time. And the truth is the core fundamentally starts, it's actually in the neck. So if somebody is, turn to the side, like if somebody's working at their computer and they're generally holding their head like this, like this shuts down their core, this flexion of the neck. And so teaching people how to like lengthen up through their neck helps set up that the core is now able to communicate well with the rest of the body. So an exercise essentially could be someone's like just working at their computer, lengthening up into good posture, and then making their belly just sort of expand and contract with their breath, so that they're not, chest breathing all the time. So if we train, generally speaking, length through the posture, and we train the expansion of the abdominal cavity for breath, then we set up the opportunity later to properly train muscles for fitness and performance if a person wanted to. So now we got the basics of active squatting 10 minutes a day, active hanging 5 minutes a day, and regular practice of posture and belly breathing. If a person wanted to, graduate to, like, let's say the next phase, then incorporating basic things like a push-up, a carry, a deadlift, which is the same as just how we pick anything off of the ground, would be a great places to start. Pick up heavy grocery bags and walk around a bunch, and that's great for developing strength and muscle mass and core function. Push-ups are great for upper body strength and core strength as well. And then a deadlift is, like I said, it's how we would pick anything off the floor. And so starting to learn how to properly pick things off the floor means that not only is that person developing strength and muscle mass over time, but they're actually arming themselves with something practical for their daily life. So the next time, they're needing to move a couch from one side of the room to another, they're not scared, oh crap, I wonder if my back's going to go out. It's like, no, it's not going to go out because it's just a deadlift. Like
right.
I've done this a million times. Like, it's deadlifting.
Yeah.
Deal,
Totally.
So those are places where I think they're very good places to start. And they don't, in my list, I guess maybe we would have a pull-up bar we need if you just wanted it in the house for the hanging. And then you need something to carry and deadlift. But that doesn't even have to be an exercise piece of equipment. That could be, people could be carrying 5-gallon buckets around with stuff in them, and picking up buckets of stuff. So it doesn't even mean they got to have an initial, financial investment.
Right.
It's one of the great things about Dr. Movement, is that in many cases, people can often get that stuff for at least almost free once they kind of learn what that would look like. That there doesn't have to be a big financial investment in that experience.
Yeah. And you've said this so many times, how, it's great to be in a gym and to do what we do, but like in terms of being out there in real practical life, it's the awkward lifts, right? Like, you always talk about, you're not going to have this perfectly balanced, barbell. It's more of just lifting that big flower pot, or lifting, whatever it is that you're doing, or the drywall, or things like that, where it's awkward, and that's using different muscles too. And that's the more, I guess, you want to do those things too. Like, it's really important. Right? Talk to me a little bit about the calories in, calories out. Like, what are your thoughts, right? I mean, I got a couple of questions. You've said before, even with the gym, there's just people that are really just in that camp, right? And there's other people that aren't. There's some people that don't know even where to start. Should I count calories? Should I not? What does it all mean? Is it important? Yeah, I don't know.
So I'm going to try not to go down the weeds with this, but and I can, like, if people want me to give like resources and stuff later, I can do that too. Like, if they wanted to start learning the details maybe of this kind of topic. All right, so remember, my brain, and I integrate all sorts of things. So most people nowadays accept that quantum mechanics is a legitimate, quantum physics is a legitimate branch of physics, and it is one of the most profound inventions, not discovery. That's it. The profound discoveries of human, civilization. And one of the major things in quantum physics that we've learned is that everything in the universe is energy and information. And so in the world of nutrition, the energy is the calories, right? Literally, the way we figured out that if an apple on average has 80 calories is we stuck an apple inside of a device called a burn calorimeter, and we burn it to ash. And then in doing so, we produce enough heat energy to create 80 calories of technically it's kilocalories, but whatever, of energy. Now, that's just the energy inside that apple. Everything in the universe is energy and information. So the energy is the calories, and in an indirect way, so are the protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Meaning, all three of those macronutrients have caloric energy numbers associated with them. Mm-hmm. They're not only energy, but it's mostly that. So when a person's hyper focused on the energy of food, they'll tend to talk about calories, macronutrients, tracking, data. And these people act like the human that they're trying to help is a machine, like a burn calorimeter, and that all we have to do is, put in less energy into your body than you are consuming, and then the net result of that is a lean, healthy, fit human. But we've been doing this long enough to know that it ain't that simple. In the real world, it just never works out quite that way.
Nope.
So then we already know, just through scientific, the scientific method, then, that it can't possibly be the full story, right? Because if it was the full story, we'd have all these success stories of people just lowering calories and permanently having lean, healthy bodies, but they don't. Mm-hmm. So then it begs the question, what are we missing? Well, we're missing the information in food. So what's the information? The information is the micronutrients, the enzymes, the phyto, chemicals in it, the water, energy. I mean, water, side, comment. It's in the world of physics. It now appears that water has a near infinite capacity to hold information. They're making computers now that process and hold information far faster and greater than anything we currently have that's not using water, and they're using water to manage all that data information. They are storing information and memory in water. So water is one of the sources of information in food. And so we're all groups of cells. Those cells are organs. Those cells become organs. Those organs become organ systems, and that's how, you know, we try and categorize the human body anatomically. But when we get down to the individual cell level, that cell is using the information from the food to perform various chemical processes. So yes, the cell consumes energy. You know, calories is a form of energy, as an example. It consumes energy. It costs energy for its cellular functions, but that energy is an extension of it using the information from the food sources to produce the various things that cell needs to do. And so when we're looking in the real world, trying to help people change how their bodies look and feel, it is important. It certainly is true. Calories matter, right? But they don't matter nearly as much as we're tending to be told. Like, sure, if I consume 10,000 calories a day, every single day, for the rest of my life, my body is going to look very, very different 20 years from now than it does right now. But no one does that, right? And so it's paramount for us to focus just as equally on what's inside that food, the information in that food. And the only way we're going to get the information our cells need is by eating living, real food, because that's the only food that was connected directly to, you know, the sun and nature, and, you know, again, the water having infinite capacity to store information. That in a way it could be viewed that the food that we're consuming, it'd be much better if it was consumed from our local environment, and not, you know, me buying something from Mexico that was shipped here to one day show up in the grocery store of Maryland, and then I ate that thing from Mexico that was, you know, picked long before it was ripe. So this isn't ideal, but if we're comparing me eating that, you know, that fruit from Mexico versus me opening up a box of I don't know, Cheerios or something. Well, there's a lot more information in that food that came from Mexico to my mouth than there is in the box of Cheerios that I bought at the same store.
Right.
And so in general, if I want the best outcome for my health and my performance and how my body looks over a lifetime, it's another good reason to focus on eating the real foods that are alive, full of enzymes and information, because the people who regularly do that ultimately are the ones who tend to find they figure out how to get their body the way they want. The ones who just are hyper focused on calories and macronutrients, and in their model, in their paradigm, there's no difference between me eating, you know, 100 calories from a Pop-Tart and 100 calories from my orange or something.
Right.
It's like, no, like we don't even need to argue with that. We, like, you're saying that sentence, but I don't even believe you believe that.
Right.
Like, you know, like, so, but there are people who act like that's the truth. You know, it's like, and you know, the sad part, a lot of them have PhDs. I'm not,
no,
I mean,
right.
I'm going to call those people out. Like, like, you know, it's like all that formal schooling, and you still think like it's that simple to just count calories.
Well, and to like piggyback on that, and you've talked about this before too, it's, you know, comes down to bio individuality, right? I mean, the 80 calories in your apple and the 80 calories in my apple, both of us eat it. It's going to be metabolized differently. It's going to be utilized differently, like, because we're just different people, right? So, you know, that's, I think, important too. Let's see. I think there was a couple more. What is your eating life like? What does it look like for you? What are you eating every day? Are you eating the same things every day? What's something that you do eat every day?
So my meals tend to be very similar. So I do something that I don't think is ideal, but it's I feel like it's a currently a necessary part for me to stay consistent with generally healthy eating practices. So what I think is more ideal is having more variety. My day tends not to have much variety. Now, day to day might have some variety, but I tend to eat the same or similar meals in a given day because that made it less time consuming and less frustrating for me in my food prep and my meal prep that day.
Okay.
So if you look at the foods I tend to eat, like a very common combination is for me to have some sort of animal in a container. And I usually divide the container into like thirds. So I'll have animals as a third. Could be anything. So animals, vegetables, and white rice is usually like the grain I'll consume if I consume grains. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But that's a pretty common template I use is animal, vegetable, and a grain that through my own experimentation I've learned doesn't make me feel crappy.
Yep. Okay, cool. If there was one thing that you could tell somebody or all of our listeners or the people that watch the playbacks that they could start doing immediately to improve their health, what would it be?
Get outside.
Okay.
I mean, if we're just talking about health, like I'm differentiating health from fitness.
Okay.
So if we're not talking about looking a certain way, performing a certain way, but rather feeling a certain way, preventing diseases and things like that, I'd say the light is a big one. Probably equally important is the sleep. Maybe just, it's hard for me to decide.
And getting in the light would probably help with the sleep, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The irony is the pineal gland, it needs to release melatonin at night. It's directly tied to our exposure to sunlight during the day. So people are having trouble getting to sleep. It might actually be because they're just not getting outside.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we hop off? Obviously I want you to share where people can find you and how they can contact you, but in terms of just what we've been talking about, or if there's anything else you'd like to share prior to that, think of anything.
No, did we answer all the questions?
I think that we answered most of them, or you actually answered a lot of them. Let me make sure. Oh, actually, there's one. How to navigate my social life now that I'm choosing to eat and live differently than my current friends and family. It's challenging. And so how do you handle that? And then there's a secondary question that was like, how do you handle traveling and eating out and things? But I get that question a lot about the social life. And I think, especially if it's someone that's coming from not really being or focusing on their wellness at all, or, just eating standard American diet. Maybe they're going out on weekends, drinking every weekend, or, they have all of that going on and trying to make that shift where they don't have the support.
So there's a guy in our gym who went through this, that I helped him sort of navigate it. And, he chose to stop drinking entirely, but his friends, generally their socializing was around alcohol. Right? And so he would find what would happen was, he decided he wanted to stop drinking. Then he would get together with these people and, hey guys, I'm not going to drink. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm making that my goal. And then, guys being guys, like they start giving him all sorts of crap, you know, teasing him, come on, man, like just have one, like, you know. Now, our conversations were tended to be focused on was that reaction from them is a reflection of their discomfort around their behaviors and their choices, right? And so the solution for this guy was simply to really, like, he had to be sure that what he is doing is what he wanted. So in my opinion, this goes back to the whole Dr. Happy concept, that unless somebody's doing something for them, they're not going to be able to defend their choice under pressure. That if they're changing something for somebody else, as soon as someone else with enough conviction pushes back, and now they're in a defensive position because they're not even really sure why they're doing this thing in the first place, then they're going to seem like they're more likely to back down and fall back into old habits. So step number one is truly finding your conviction for your choices, and then it becomes much easier to say to other people, no, like, this is the boundary, like, this is what I'm doing, and, you know, accept it and, like, embrace it, support me in it, or we have to change how our relationship is operating. It doesn't mean I got to cut you out of my life, but it does mean that, you know, maybe we can't socialize under certain circumstances, or maybe we have to change how we're socializing. So I think my experience has been that most of these can be overcome by the person simply being clear and honest with their own conviction. And then it becomes much easier to convey that to other people. Most people won't push back if they feel like the person's firmly decided in their choice.
Right.
It's only when somebody feels like I don't know what the word is, like wishy-washy, you know, it's like, you know, last week you wanted to do this thing and you stopped that, and now here you are this week with this new thing, like, you're not going to stick to it, like, you know. And so becoming convicted clear is going to change all that with people. I
love that. And I think, I mean, I get it a lot, especially when it comes to changing the way you're eating, and then even having family members or, you know, close friends giving you a hard time, and that, you know, when they're making these snarky comments or being negative towards you, it's their thing. It's not like what you were saying about, you know, it being a reflection of their own insecurities or their own issues that they're having with your making these choices, right? So I like that. Well, that's good. I think that covers the questions that were sent in. I mean, there were a few about fitness, but you covered them, I believe, in your presentation. Well, we do have another one if you have time. I just found. This might be one that you like. How can I find a doctor or practitioner that I can trust to get to the root cause of my health issues, rather than going the pharmaceutical route, or, you know, just being symptom, you know what I mean? Like symptom chasing or corrective.
So that's definitely super important to me. Like this, you know, as a professional, it became really important for me to do the same thing, not only for my own body, in my athletic pursuits, but, you know, I wanted to have like a network that I could refer other people to and feel confident that those people, you know, agreed with the philosophy that we were using in our, you know, fitness journey. So my first, sorry if there's going to be doctors hearing this. My first piece of advice is choose an MD as a last resort. First, go find something outside of MD world. Now, one of my favorite doctors is an MD, and he's in my life. Like, we do workshops together. We've known each other for 10 years. So in no way am I bashing MDs, but look, like, the medical doctors out there have to just be honest with the world. And, you know, they go through all of this schooling And as an example, many of them only have a few hours of nutritional training.
Mhm.
You know, they have 0 hours usually of anything related to fitness and medicine. I'm sorry, anything related to fitness. I don't know why I said the word medicine. And so, you know, the average patient plops down in their office once they're operating their practice, and the patient thinks that the person in front of them is an expert in all things health and wellness.
Mhm.
But more often than not, that physician was trained, you know, in the allopathic model, and the training is so intense and so memory specific that they just don't have a curriculum that involves basic things like nutrition and exercise and sleep and, you know,
Mhm.
relationship building and blah 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 blah. So generally speaking, go outside of the world of MDs. So now it's okay, well, that's narrowing down my choices. So naturopaths tend to be good places to start. Um, Doctors of DOs, doctor of osteopath, often is a good place. Physical therapists and chiropractors can be, if they took it upon themselves to go through further schooling after graduation, you know, around exercise, nutrition stuff. Um, you know, asking people that you know
Mhm.
who have similar values as you, is also a good place to start, right? Because really that's what we're really talking about, is finding people who share similar philosophies, have similar values. And so using the relationships you have as a starting point to find physicians, that have similar philosophies and values is a great idea.
Mhm.
I'm part of the Czech Institute, right? And so the Czech Institute is a worldwide international education platform, and they have what's called Czech Connect. And if you go on Czech Connect, I think it's czechconnect.com as an example, you know, you can search for Czech practitioners, many of which are doctors,
Mhm.
all over the world, right? And so, like, finding resources like that, if in this case you resonate with the values and philosophy of the Czech Academy, that can be a place to start narrowing down choices too. So, referrals, big source. Communities that have similar values and philosophies, also a big choice. And as you know, as I tell people, you know, if you're injured, surgery should be the last option. Even though it is an option, it should be the last one we consider. Unfortunately, due to the education and training around most MD programs, they tend to be the last ones I consider as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I wish it wasn't true, you
Right.
know, but it is just how things currently are.
Yep.
And I'd love to be part of changing it over my lifetime, but
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
is what it is.
No, you're absolutely right. I think we're definitely on the same page with this and a lot of things. And I also tell people not to be afraid to, you know, if they're not in line with what their practitioner or their doctor is saying or recommending to them, or they're feeling pressured, or, you know, they just
Mm-hmm.
don't feel right about it, that they work for you. You can go and get another opinion. You know, I think a lot of people
Yep.
feel that they have to listen or take the advice from their practitioners. And it's like, there, you know, you can go and find someone else that's more in line with your values, or, you know, that, I mean, it's just, it's not as hard as, you know, I mean, I know there's limitations, like, you know, with some people having specific insurances and things like that. You
Oh,
know,
so that's another part of this. If we're being, everything's a sliding scale, right? That's like good, better, best. If I had to choose and the person had the resources, the money to do it, opt for out of network, you know, cash providers.
mhm,
Because again, sad reality, but the insurance model has evolved in a way where it handcuffs the practitioners,
mhm,
um, such that they cannot make a living. They can barely make a living if they're not just churning out patients back to back to back to back.
right.
So when you go, if you have medical insurance and you choose to use your in-network medical insurance privileges, your experience will tend to be going to an office where you feel like you're not really heard,
Mm-hmm.
you're dismissed. There's a sense of being rushed through a process.
Yep.
And it is, I mean, your sense is right. It's really happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to blame the doctors because they're running a business. They're trying to pay their bills. They're trying to put food on the table for their families. And they unfortunately made a decision that they wanted to do it this way, which means they can't spend any significant time with you, the patient,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore they can't get to know you.
Right.
Like you're just a number. You're just another, not really kind of anonymous patient.
Mm-hmm.
But if you value your health, and most people who are listening to this and part of your network clearly do, if you that it's better that you spend the money on the doctors you want and then ask for the out-of-network benefit paperwork to send to your insurance companies after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you'll pay a little bit more money than if you did the in-network stuff, but what you get in return is much better service and a professional who's actually investing their time in you rather than trying to get to the next person as quick as possible.
Yeah. And the other thing too, that, I mean, I've had clients come to me that have been to several practitioners, going from this doctor to that doctor, and they just weren't able to figure things out, and they're paying co-pays each time. And, so sometimes it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it may seem like it's more out of pocket or, at one time, but if you consider your medication cost, your cost of just your quality of life, if you're miserable and in pain, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
having to pay co-pays going from this doctor to that doctor, and then you factor in like time to get to these doctors. And, it's like, you have to
Mm-hmm.
look at all of those costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's,
Absolutely.
in my opinion, I'm like, to me, I'm like, it's worth just paying a little more if you can, and going to these
Mm-hmm.
other doctors that are going to be able to sit down and listen to you and really look at you as an individual and get to the root cause of what's going on, and not just prescribe medications that are going to,
right. Yep.
help you feel better in the moment. And so,
yeah.
And like you were saying, I mean, there's definitely a place for sure. Modern medicine, I mean, for acute things, I break my arm, I'm going to the hospital, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's not to bash.
Yep. Car accident.
Exactly.
Going to the
right.
hospital.
But when it comes to just over, maintenance or disease prevention and preventative care in general, I think it's important to find a doctor that works for you, that's going to listen. And
and the disparities of income, across races and genders are a real thing, and
Exactly.
they're not fair. And but again, just it's part of our culture currently. And so there may be people listening to this who they're like, yeah, that's great, Jason and Jamie, but like I'm barely paying my rent, right? And those people, you're gonna have to use your in-network insurance stuff, and you're gonna have to work on a budget. But it doesn't, even though that's the reality of your life, it doesn't prevent you from actually asking the hard questions to the doctor or the professional to find out if this person's values and philosophy align with your own. So there's nobody can stop you from doing that part.
Absolutely.
And it's free, right? And so sometimes the message that we're talking about right now, I get pushback by people who are of lower income. And I think that's more of a reaction from the life, the stress that they're living, and not as much a reflection of like thinking this part through. Like we can still ask the person in front of us, are you the right fit for me? What I'm going through. Even if I know I'm going to have to get rushed out of the office in 10 minutes. And even if I know another doctor that I wish I could pay, but I just don't have the resources right now, I can still do my due diligence at any financial level.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are rolling on 10 o'clock. This is the longest chat that I've had like this. And like I said, I could just talk to you all night long. But
I was like, you know, I can
I
rebuild.
know. Thank you so much, and you have to come back again. We'll have to do this again.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
so top tier Columbia, you guys, like I said earlier, or if you came in late, it's in Columbia. Jason, owner operator, he coaches there. He teaches CrossFit classes, but he also teaches awesome kettlebell classes. They're my favorite. And those you don't even have to be a member. You can actually pop in and join us from anywhere if you have Zoom, because they're offered in Zoom or in person. So let me know, or you can, let us know in the comments if you're interested in finding out about that. Is there anything else you want to let us know about Top Tier? I mean, there's all kinds of things going on there all the time, but just you can go to the website, toptiercolumbia.com, check it out.
Yep.
And then you have Noble Training Institute, right, on social media, Instagram at Noble Training Institute, and also you have a business page as well, right? Facebook page.
Yes, Facebook.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other?
And people could, if they needed to reach me directly, they can just email Jason at toptiercolumbia.com.
Okay.
And wouldn't that be the easiest way to get to me?
Yeah. I mean, I highly recommend you. Like, you're amazing. If anybody's looking for some guidance, even if it's short term, just to connect with Jason, talk to him, he will help you out for sure. And well, thank you so much. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, let's do it again soon. And hopefully I will see you maybe tomorrow, get my butt in there and or kettlebell.
Great.
But all right. Well, have a good night.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah. You too.
You too.
Thanks.
All right. Till next time.
Yep. Until next time. Bye.